Our fascination with the power of invisibility traces back to the beginning of human civilization. From Greek mythology to Star Trek and Lord of the Rings, the allure of moving through the world unseen has always intrigued us. Many organisms employ a wide variety of strategies to avoid being detected, and the Hawaiian Bobtail Squid has evolved perhaps the most impressive of these, harnessing the power of invisibility. Now, the Hawaiian Bobtail Squid lives in the warm, shallow waters off the coast of Hawaii. This wide-eyed little squid is just a few inches long and spends most of its day buried safely beneath the sand until nightfall, when it ventures out to feed. Now, to prevent its silhouette from being visible to nocturnal predators lurking below, the bobtail squid is teamed up with a glowing bacteria called Vibrio Fischeri. Using a tactic known as counter-illumination, the squid is able to emit light that directly matches the wavelength and intensity of the light coming down from the moon and the stars. Therefore, it is effectively invisible to its predators below and no longer casts a shadow. Now, the bioluminescent bacteria live in crypts inside of the squid's special light organ. When the colony grows to a critical density, a signal triggers the bacteria to flip on their light-producing genes and glow. The top of the light, or you can think of the light organ, I should say, as an eye, except instead of controlling the light coming in, it's regulating the light going out. So the top of the light organ has reflective tissue on it, aiming the light downwards in the same direction as the light coming down from the moon. The squid uses its ink sac to control how much light escapes, and then controls the intensity with a lens. Now, the squid is able to control how much light it emits, so basically is able to look at the surrounding light and then change its emission to match that so it can remain invisible while it swims. Now, we are learning some big things from this little squid. You see, at the most basic level, for something to appear invisible, light must bend around it and not bounce off of it. We can think of invisibility as not looking through an object, but instead as only seeing what is directly behind it. Now, extraordinary proteins called reflectins also aid in the squid's invisibility. Their composition and arrangement allow them to bend and scatter light better than any other protein. And so far, they have helped us create synthetic materials successful in bending microwaves. By learning more from reflectins, perhaps one day, the bobtail squid will bring us one step closer to bending visible light. But until then, the invisibility cloak hangs in our imaginations. But I'm not done. But thank you. So, the Hawaiian bobtail squid illuminates how with science, the impossible is possible. And our fascination with the power of invisibility reminds us that there are things out there beyond our wildest imaginations, and they are just waiting for us to discover them. Thank you.
Well handled. Hecklers are always a problem. Are there other creatures on the planet that have similar abilities?
Absolutely. There are a lot of creatures that bioluminesce. The word bioluminescence, bio like life, and luminescent as in light. So it's like life that creates light. And so there's a lot of animals that will create their own light, and then a lot of animals that team up with other things like bacteria to create light. So lots of species of squids, a lot of fish do it as well, fireflies, any of you from the Midwest. So there's a lot of different animals that use light for communication, finding mates, but in this instance, it's more unique because the squid are using light to actually disappear.
That is so cool.
Right?
I did not know anything about that there were squid that could make themselves invisible at night. That's just wonderful to know. And I'm curious about the motivation to study this because, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, it's so cool that is its own reward, that you should just study it because it's so cool. And yet I suspect that there are other applications and not just the science fictional, oh, someday we're going to build a James Bond car that disappears, but that there are probably, what are some of the other practical reasons why you want to study this?
So there's a lot of reasons to study this. What's really unique about this particular symbiosis between the bacteria and the squid, for scientists, first of all, it's really great to study because the squid and the bacteria are really easy to grow in the lab. And that can be a really big challenge when you're looking at systems. Also, a lot of bacterial symbiosis involve millions and millions of different types of species, like in your stomach. Studying the bacteria species in your stomach is a little bit harder, but this particular symbiosis, one bacteria, one host. And so that's a really good system for us to look at. As far as light production goes, this like looking at basically, let's see, there's so many. So the Bobtail Squid got to go on a really exciting NASA mission to outer space, which is really neat. And what they did for that is they were looking at the effects of a good bacteria in outer space. Because what we know so far is that bad bacteria, when you take them out of planet Earth, they get worse. And so what happens if you take a good bacteria up? And having a system that you're able to look at that really individually is really, really cool. And also in terms of camouflaging, right? So you're talking military type operations like that. Counter-illumination is, as far as marine organisms go, is a really good strategy. And so how can we use the things that we have now? How can we create different types of like invisibility spectrums to help in that regard as well?
Yeah, I'm excited about the idea of a bobtail squid
They're
because that's
super cute.
Yeah, I can imagine. I'm wondering, are there other creatures out there that not just do bioluminescence, but that are invisible? And how do you know?
Right? Yeah. Well, so counter-illumination, this whole idea of appearing as your background. So an easy way to look at camouflage, for example, is like you see animals that'll have stripes that'll kind of confuse predators when they're looking at things, the wings of butterflies to appear as different animals, or those really big eyes. So there's different ways that animals use camouflage to appear like other things, but you still see them. And so then looking at counter-illumination, they're not trying to appear as a different animal or as necessarily totally their background. They're actually mimicking light to remove something, like they're removing that shadow that's on the ground. And so there are different animals that mimic that same behavior. Like they have a bioluminescence that they use to mimic the downwelling light in their situations as well. But I'm not sure if that totally answered your question. But is that?
I think the answer is we don't know if we can't see them.
Maybe we just gotta look at them from on top, because if the bobtail squid, as you can imagine, they only live in like water that's like this deep, and so you can like go to Hawaii, like roll up your jeans, go out into the shallows, and the animals that are below when they look up see the stars. But if you're looking down, you've got your flashlight, you can call them out. So you said it's all about your approach.
That's I'm calling Bobtail Squid next time I go. Thanks.
Yeah.
Great.
Awesome. Thanks, Ed.